Presentation, there we go, it's working. Okay, so this talk is called Louisville's A Beautiful Public Art. By public art, I mean it's artwork that is in the public domain. It's not in a building, let's say. It's not privately housed. And usually the public art has been bought or funded by us citizens, by us taxpayers in some manner, or else it's been donated by someone to put in the public domain. And I'll explain some of that as we go forth through the presentation. So the metro government tracks all of the public art on a website. It's called Louisville's Creates Public Art website. Louisville Creates Public Art website. And they all those little colored dots up there represent artwork that's out in the public domain. And we'll be discussing a lot of that today. So let's go downtown to see all the public art. We have a lot of public art in downtown Louisville. Number one, we'll start off with Thomas Jefferson. The sculptor was Moses Ezekiel, put up in 1901 in Metro Hall, which is the old courthouse downtown on Jefferson Street between 5th and 6th Streets. It's a Thomas Jefferson holding a copy of the Declaration of Independence, which of course he helped create. And then he's standing atop, I think that's the Liberty Bell that he's atop. And then around are some figurines which represent various virtues of American society, like liberty and freedom and things like that. So that's Thomas Jefferson. And then within Metro Hall, the old courthouse, is a statue of Henry Clay. He was a famous Kentucky senator in the 1800s. The sculptor was Joel Tanner Hart. It was created in 1866, and it's in Metro Hall there in the atrium space. It's made, I think, of Carrara marble. And Carrara marble was used by a lot of sculptors over the years, but it's a very fragile material. It weathers. It doesn't last very long outside. If you ever go to a cemetery and you see headstones that have weathered all the text off, normally those are made of Carrara marble. So I'm sure this was probably of that same material, and thus it has to be indoors or else that statue would not last very long. One of our great locations of public art is at the Kentucky Center for the Arts. Outside on the plaza is a sculpture by Alexander Calder, who is a very famous sculptor. It's called the Red Feather. Now, I was there earlier this week by the Kentucky Center for the Arts, and the Red Feather is not on the plaza. And so I put out some messages over the last day or so asking what happened to our Red Feather sculpture. No one seems to know. On the website of the Kentucky Center for the Arts, it says that the sculpture is off the premises. It doesn't say where it's off the premises or what's happening to it. I don't know. It may be being repaired. Maybe something happened to it. It was just refurbished about 10 years ago, so hopefully they'll put it back. But it just says temporary off premises, which means hopefully they'll reinstall it. But that's the Red Feather there. But John Dubuffet created these beautiful sculptures that used to be outside, but they were starting to weather fairly badly, so they brought them inside the atrium there at the Kentucky Center for the Arts. And that's those guys there. And then Joan Miro designed that. I love this piece by Louise Nevelson. I'm a big fan of hers, Night Wave Moon. And I actually got to see Louise Nevelson when she was here installing that piece. She was sitting there watching the people put the pieces in place. And then the other one that we have in the atrium of the Kentucky Center is called Colored Gates of Louisville. They don't look like gates to me, but they kind of look like smashed automobiles. But anyways, John Chamberlain designed that piece of artwork, which is up on the atrium wall. And I also got to see him when I was walking through the atrium one day back in the 1980s. He was there, and he had his whole studio sort of mapped out there in the atrium. He had a big rug, he had his easy chair, he had a lamp, I think, he had various things, sort of like in his own studio, and he was, people were installing this piece, and he would tell them, oh, move it this way, no, move it that way. You know, he's it's kind of interesting how he got all that assembled up there on the wall. But anyways, got to see those folks. But the Kentucky Center for the Arts, great public art pieces. Another great piece is Abraham Lincoln down at the main library, designed by George Gray Bernard, 1922. Of course, Lincoln, a Kentuckian. The photo on the right is a famous flood photograph from the 1937 flood, and the water is there at his feet. Now, the photographer kind of cheated a bit on this photograph. The water actually went up over his feet, and the photographer thought, well, let's just wait till it goes down, which he did, and took the photograph. So it looks like Lincoln walking on water. It's down at the library, a bronze piece. Benjamin Franklin, sorry for the fuzzy photograph, I took this off the internet, but it was designed by Felix D. Weldon, 1973. It's in front of the main entrance of the modern wing of the library downtown. Marquis de Lafayette. I don't speak French very well, but I'll let you read the name there. And it was created in 1790. It's down at 6th and Liberty in front of the old jail that's downtown off Liberty Street. And Marquis de Lafayette, I'm not sure if you know much about his history. He was a French soldier, aide-de-camp, sent by King Louis XVI, who we are named for. He was sent by King Louis XVI over to be an aide to George Washington during the Revolutionary War. He was sort of the eyes and ears for the king over in France. Since France was funding the American Revolution, King Louis wanted to know, hey, is my money being well spent? How are they doing? What's going on with this? And so Marquis de Lafayette was the eyes and ears of the French government when he was here in America. And so he was with George Washington. After the Revolutionary War, Marquis de Lafayette did a grand tour of America. I think it was in 1826, I want to say. But he visited various cities in America, and one of them was Louisville. He came here and visited, and he probably gave a speech as well. And so to honor his visit here, we created this bust of him there downtown. So that's Marquis de Lafayette. Very famous French person in the American Revolution. Pee Wee Reese, the famous baseball player, Raymond Graff designed this back in 2000. It's outside Slugger baseball field, which would be appropriate, of course, for a baseball player. He was with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And Paul Hornung, famous football player from Louisville, Notre Dame, a Heisman Trophy winner, played for the Green Bay Packers. This also is at Witherspoon and Preston Street by the Slugger Baseball Stadium in downtown Louisville. But that's Paul Hornung. Some of you may have recalled hearing of him. Very famous football player from Louisville. Al Sneeder, also by Raymond Graff, 1998. It's down by the Galt House on 4th Street. Al is actually looking up at his Galt House, which he had built. Al was a developer, and throughout his entire lifetime, he was a great builder of Louisville, great developer. If you took all the buildings that Al Sneeder built, he could have his own city. He built hotels, office buildings, residences, churches, schools, you name it, Al Sneeder built it. And his family donated this statue on 4th Street to honor his achievements. This is Tom Simons, who's waving at you there. He was with he was the head of Capital Holding Company, which was an insurance company, and he's waving to, across the street, J. Graham Brown. Both these statues were created by Raymond Graff, and they're there. J. Graham Brown is standing outside of his hotel, the Brown Hotel. You may have heard of that, down near 4th and Broadway. And Tom Simons was also outside his building, which unfortunately no longer exists. Commonwealth Insurance Company used to have a huge building right adjacent to where Tom Simons is, but they demolished that a number of years ago, and Kindred Healthcare built a building there that replaced it. So Tom Simons is sort of like just standing out there by himself. There's not much there, but here's a great civic booster of Louisville, and helped the city a lot. And of course, J. Graham Brown not only did the Brown Hotel, but he also did the Brown Cancer Center, the Louisville Zoo. He was a big benefactor of that, and also the Kentucky Derby Museum. This is Sister Catherine Spalding. A lot of people call her Mother Catherine Spalding. She was a sister of Charity of Nazareth. Raymond Graff also designed this. It's outside the cathedral in downtown Louisville. Catherine Spalding, Spalding University, Presentation Academy. She really helped develop a lot of the Catholic institutions here in Louisville. Charles Farnsley, he's sitting there on the bench, and he's sitting outside the Fund for the Arts. The Fund for the Arts is a number of groups, performing arts groups primarily. I don't want to say it's the opera and various other groups, but anyways, he helped bring them together and created this fund as a way of financially benefiting them, the Fund for the Arts. And so to honor Charles Farnsley, who was mayor back in the 1950s, the Fund for the Arts, I believe, had Don Yates, a sculptor, create this bench, and so you can go down and sit next to Charles Farnsley, Charlie Farnsley, if you'd like. He always wore a bow tie. You can see the bow tie there that he's wearing, but that's the reason why that statue is there along West Main Street. This is kind of an interesting abstract sculpture. I'll let you define what you think of it, but it's called The Bride, and it's there on 5th Street, right opposite the Cathedral of the Assumption. The artist was Reginald Butler, 1964. I think it's still there. I know they're reworking the plaza that's right adjacent there. It was called Founders Square Plaza. They're redoing it right now, so I guess the Bride's going to stay there. I don't know. The Bride has been moved around several times, as has a number of these sculptures. Okay, I'm just showing this one from the waist up. This is 21C Hotel. This is the David statue that's standing out there at, I think it's at 7th and West Main Street. Again, it's not the actual David statue, obviously. That's over in Florence, Italy. But it's interesting, to say the least. It gets a lot of photographs taken of it from the waist down, primarily. And then we've got the little penguins up there. Of course, 21C Hotel is an art museum itself. You go inside, it has a lot of modern art. Again, I'll let you decide if that's your taste or not. But anyways, very artistic location here in Louisville. Here's some images of inside the hotel, 21C Hotel. You can see some of the modern artwork that's in there. This is on 7th Street between Main and Market. This alleyway goes to a parking garage, and Jasper Ward, who was an architect, created this sculpture piece that it's a chimes. It rings just like if you have out on your patio, you may have some chimes that when the wind blows, they make noise. Well, that's what this thing used to do, but all the businesses nearby did not like it ringing all the time, so they put little mufflers on the bell so it doesn't really ring or make noise much anymore. They kind of silenced it, if you will. But anyways, it's kind of interesting modern sculpture piece. This is outside Wave TV 3 there at Floyd and Jacob Streets. It's a sculpture, I forget what the name of it is, but it looks very solid. It looks like it's made out of stone, right? But you go up and you bang on it, and I think it's fiberglass. It's hollow, it's very light, but it looks very sturdy, doesn't it? But anyways, I don't know what the piece is or what it's doing, but it's been there since Wave TV. It's probably been there 50, 60 years, maybe more. I love this sculpture here. This is in the medical center. I think it's on Jackson Street. They're part of the U of L Medical School. It's called Ad Astra, To the Stars. Very beautiful. I did not get the name of the sculptor for this, but it's been there again since the mid-1970s. Very beautiful. I've always enjoyed seeing that sculpture piece. Down at Jefferson Square, which is at 6th and Jefferson and Liberty Streets. We have a plaza here that has various memorials there. We have the Firefighters Memorial. And then at the headquarters, which is down, I want to say that piece is down around 11th and Jefferson, 12th and Jefferson, the one on the right. It's actually a stainless steel flame. And I think that's a fire hose going around it. But again, those two memorials are for the firefighters. Downtown on West Main again, we have the huge bat, Slugger baseball bat. It was not actually created by an artist, it was created by the Caldwell Tank Company. They build water tanks. And currently they're building a big water tank over here by the VA hospital that you might see that
Is
huge
it a water tank?
that big water tank that they're
I
putting up.
told my daughter it couldn't be a water tank, it was too small, so she's going to be right.
Yeah, it's a real water tank. And so they did this, a big bat, and it's actually, it performs a function. There's a vent going up through it for the restrooms of the Slugger Museum, so it's a big vent stack. And then the plate glass company down the street created this window broken by a baseball, so it's kind of an interactive sculpture piece that we have here. Pretty interesting with the Slugger bat and all. Also along West Main Street, periodically they've placed little plaques Louisville Slugger has to honor some of the baseball players who used their bats. This one is for Pete Browning. Pete Browning famously cracked a bat, in which John Hillerick created a bat for him, which became Louisville Slugger. But they have a play for Pete Browning. I think they have one for Babe Ruth. I'm sure they have it for all the famous sluggers like Joe DiMaggio and others. But they're along various spots along West Main Street. It's kind of nice. Of course, we have the banner program in downtown Louisville that you see here. We have one for Colonel Sanders, one for Jennifer Lawrence. They have like 20 or 30 banners throughout the community highlighting a lot of the famous celebrities of the city. Muhammad Ali, obviously, it would be one. But anyways, various banners. And periodically, the city does this thing called Gallapalooza. And they just did one just this past year where they have various artists take a horse sculpture and paint it. This one, this looks like it's a Kentucky Derby thing. There's Bob Baffert there. I'm sure that's one of his horses that he had. But anyways, as you drive through downtown Louisville, you see various businesses with these colorful horses out front, and it's part of the Gallapalooza art program to kind of beautify the city and the streetscape. Also, throughout downtown Louisville, they have bike rack sculptures. And you may not notice what these are for, but they are to hook to lock your bike up as you're riding downtown on the sidewalk. You can pull your bike up and put your lock around one of these things. But they're really decorative artwork, obviously. They're artwork and they're bike racks. I love this one. This is lower right-hand corner there. That is outside the Kindred office building there at 4th and Broadway. And it's actually bicycles. I think that's great because you're locking your bicycle up to a bicycle. Kind of interesting, different things. Of course, banners. Muhammad Ali has a number of murals throughout downtown Louisville. By the way, we don't have an actual sculpture of Muhammad Ali, and the reason for that is the Islamic faith. They do not believe in that sort of idol worship, if you will, of big sculptures. It would be great to have a phenomenal sculpture of Muhammad Ali, but the Muslim Islamic faith kind of frown on that sort of worship, if you will. But we do have a lot of murals throughout downtown honoring Ali. I love this one here. This is on, doesn't say, but it's on Chestnut Street, 10th and Chestnut. Unfortunately, not too many people get to see that mural, because if you know about Chestnut Street, it's one-way eastbound, so you're driving the opposite direction. You almost have to turn around as you're driving to see it, because you're going the other direction. But it's a beautiful sculpture. You can see it from 9th and Chestnut. You can see it pretty well. And there on the right is Muhammad Ali's gravesite there at Cave Hill Cemetery. Okay, we'll just wait here for a second. The slide is going to catch up eventually. I'll click it one more time and see if that will work. No, it's got a mind of its own, so while we wait for it to click up. So yeah, Muhammad Ali's gravesite there. Oh, there we go. Let me go back. Finally, it caught up. His gravesite is designed so it attracts both butterflies and bees. If you ever go there, look up in the upper left-hand corner. There's a tree, and there's a white box that helps corral the bees and all that, so they keep bees coming to that area. So let's go down on the waterfront area there. This is the water tower at Zorn and River Road, and around the base of it has these statues. Some of you may be familiar with those statues. They're Greek goddesses, and here are all their names. I won't repeat what they are, but they're Greek goddesses like Neptune and Mercury and people like that. But there's one in particular statue that a lot of people talk about, and it's this one right here. It's a Native American, an Indian with a dog. And there's various theories as to how the Indian and the dog got put up there with Greek goddesses. I won't quite get into it, but it's fascinating. But whenever anyone goes down to see the statues, they're always looking for the Indian with the dog. But it's beautiful. They just restored the water tower, and hopefully it'll last another 100 years. It was installed and built actually in 1860, so it's 164 years old. Also downtown along the waterfront is what we call the flock of fins. These sculptures here, they're like bird-like animals, bird-like things, chickens, roosters, things like that. Very colorful. Marvin Finn, who is an African-American artist, created those back in 2001. It says River Road and Preston Street, but it's actually Witherspoon and Preston Street. But very cool, colorful, playful, decorative artwork along the waterfront. I've always loved this sculpture. I know it's fairly abstract, but it's called Grace Hopper, or Hopper, depending on how you pronounce it. Very abstract, angular. It's massive sculpture. You can actually walk underneath this thing. It's so big. Tony Smith was a sculptor in 1988. And originally it was over at the Kentucky Center for the Arts, but hardly anyone got to see it. People thought it was not in the right location, so they put it down on the great lawn there along the waterfront. This is called Tetra by Charles Perry, 1999. Witherspoon Street at First and Preston. Very sculptural, curvilinear type sculpture. And it's frozen up again. I'm talking too fast, I think. There we go. The Big Four Bridge, I think, is a very sculptural piece of artwork, even though it was a railroad bridge, but they put these colorful lights on it, this nice curvilinear ramp. It's interactive. You can go up and walk along it. Me and my wife do it on a regular basis, and very beautiful how they designed all this. So I add that as public art. Down on our Belvedere, which is at 4th and Main Street, or 5th and Main Street, we have a George Rogers Clark by Felix de Weldon, and then York, the African-American slave of the Clarks, and he was designed by the African-American artist Ed Hamilton. And very beautiful artwork there. Unfortunately, it's up on the Belvedere, so it's not as widely seen as some of the others' artworks. And then we have Ed Hamilton again created another Lincoln sculpture here down on the waterfront. I think I have a better photograph of it there, or maybe not, I probably don't. But anyways, that's Lincoln. Of course, he came here in 1841 to visit his friend Joshua Fry Speed. And this depicts how Lincoln might have looked in 1841 because he did not have his beard. So let's go into a couple of the artists that have created some of these beautiful sculptures. Ed Hamilton, we'll talk about him first. These are some images of Ed here. He's one of the iconic sculptors of Louisville, and not only of Louisville, but of America. He's done sculptures throughout the country, primarily up in Washington, D.C., the Northeast area. And he's done a number of sculpture works here locally. Just phenomenal artist. I've got to know him pretty well. Here he is creating that Lincoln sculpture that I talked about earlier. You can see how large it is there. And again, he does not have a beard. And how did he grow? Why did he grow the beard? Because when he was out campaigning, a little girl, similar to the girl that's depicted there, told him he'd look better with a beard. I'm sure he took it well. He grew a beard. Here's some more photographs. This was from the dedication of this sculpture down in 2009 when they did that. And they put up various plaques that honor Lincoln's legacy here from the time when he was in log cabins and various other things from his life. They have these plaques adjacent to the sculpture. And one of the more dramatic ones is this one here, showing a group of African American slaves. When Lincoln came here in 1841, was his first really interaction with slavery out on the plantation with Farmington. Greatly impacted him from then on out. And one reason why he did the Emancipation Proclamation. But anyways, it really was one of his legacies of his presidency. And one other one was, of course, the Civil War, and this bronze plaque depicted that. And one more, this is a small model, very kind of small, that Ed created. He always does, Ed creates little models first, make sure that he gets the feeling, the thing right, then he creates the large scale. And there's the York statue again that Ed Hamilton created. And the most recent sculpture that we have in Louisville was dedicated earlier this year, and this is a David Jones Sr. David Jones was co-founder of Humana, which is now the large insurance company, so you may have Humana Insurance. And Ed Hamilton was the sculptor, and there he is, adjacent to the artwork that he designed. And if you notice the height of David Jones, I think Ed said that he created David Jones at 1/4 scale, which is 125% larger than normal, if you will. So he's larger than what David Jones actually was, probably about the same height or a little shorter than Ed Hamilton is there. But anyways, I was down at the dedication earlier this year for this, and it's really good. I knew David Jones. I actually worked for Humana at one point, and so I'm so glad that they gave him this prominent location. It's down at Witherspoon and 1st Street. Enid Yandel, very prominent female sculptor of Louisville. Here's some images of her. She helped design some of the sculptures at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. She won a national competition for this Carrie Brown Memorial in Providence, Rhode Island, 1899. Very prominent work up in Providence, Rhode Island. She also won another competition for the Confederate Memorial here in Louisville. What you're seeing there is what actually was built, but that was not Enid Yandel's design. That was created by another firm. What Enid Yandel designed was this on the right. And It was not built, unfortunately. I'm not sure if I have the reasons why. Let me see. So there's the Confederate Memorial. There's Enid Yandel's proposal that actually won the competition, but they did not build it. So the question is, why didn't they build Enid Yandel's sculpture? Number one, they said it wasn't structurally sound, that it would fall over. I'll let you decide if that's the case. They also said there was a bias because the women of the jury was the Confederate Women's Association, so they alleged bias of the female jurors. Oh, we can't have women selecting a woman sculptor. Men would never do that, right? So that's another reason why it might not have been built. So here, see if you think this one might be the reason. The Confederate men did not want a woman designing their memorial. I'll let you decide. But it was not built. So anyways, it's of course been a very controversial monument and no longer exists. They took the Confederate Memorial down a few years ago, and it's down, I think, down in Brandenburg, Kentucky now. Enid did design this Wheelman's bench. Sorry for the poor quality of the photograph there, but it honors the bicycle community that was pretty prevalent here in the late 1800s in Louisville. It's at 3rd and Southern Parkway. But of course, the two major sculpture pieces here in Louisville that Enid was responsible for were Hogan's Fountain here on the left and the Daniel Boone statue there on the right. They're at Cherokee Park area. There's a better picture of, that's a Pan sculpture. Pan was a mythical creature that lived in the forest. I think it was half human, half goat, I think. You can see the feet there with the hooves on it. This sculpture also had these turtles around the top of it. And the turtles, I was there yesterday, and the water is still streaming out of their mouths. The water comes down into the fountain there. Let's talk about Barney Bright, another legendary sculptor of Louisville. Here's some images of him. By the way, one interesting thing that Barney always did with his sculptures was he would incorporate himself there. You can see just to the right of Barney, you can see his figurine that he would do. Here it is. This is called the Search sculpture. It's over in New Albany, Indiana, out front of the library there. And again, you can see Barney depicted there in the center. You know, I love this sculpture piece. This is down in front of the Federal Building in downtown Louisville, Chestnut Street and 6th Street area. It's a horse head with a fish tail, and it has wings. So you have a horse head, wings, and then a fish tail on the back side there. It's called the River Horse. This is called Truth and Justice. It's on the University of Louisville campus. Pretty interesting thing. It actually originally was located in front of the Legal Arts Building on downtown Louisville, down there, I think it was 7th and Market Street. But it's now down on the campus of U of L. Some other sculptures are Barney's done a number of bronze statues there in Cave Hill Cemetery. He did one for the Applegate Memorial there. I call that the Dancing Girl. Then he did Harry, his name's escaping me, but he was the magician. That's down also in Cave Hill. He did this one for this boy here. His middle name was Urban. I forget his actual full name. Unfortunately, this one sculpture here on the right is difficult to find at Cave Hill. It's in the intersection there, and it's not a very prominent location. This is the Sandra Twist Memorial at Cave Hill. It's pretty prominent. A lot of people see this sculpture piece. And then the lower center piece there, that's actually Barney and his wife Gail's burial plot at Cave Hill with a monument there. This is perhaps Barney's most notable work, most infamous work. It's called the Louisville Clock. This one's been moved numerous times. It was originally dedicated in the mid-1970s. It's been moved several times. Its last location was down near 4th and Broadway at the old Theater Square location. It was moved back around, I want to say 2016 or so. It's been put in city storage. I doubt if it will ever come out again, but very prominent piece of artwork. It had racing figurines around it. Here's Barney. He also built a mock-up of the clock. Here it is down on 4th Street. Here are the racing figurines, the infamous Belle of Louisville, which people commented on. You got Daniel Boone, chasing a bear, George Rogers Clark, Thomas Jefferson. They had some figurines up in the clock tower there. And then here we go again, the King Louis statue, Daniel Boone with the bear, the Belle of Louisville, very flamboyant sculpture piece. So anyways, beautiful. Hopefully one day they'll take the figurines out of storage and put them in a museum someplace. That's where they belong. Okay, we have some miscellaneous pieces of artwork around. Always like the St. James Court fountain piece. It's down in old Louisville area. Here at Cave Hill Cemetery, they have some beautiful sculpture pieces. This one here is of Mayor Jacob, Charles Jacob. The Satterwhite Memorial at the Speed Art Museum, you have the Satterwhite Gallery. The Satterwhites collected a lot of tapestries and sculptures from Europe. They were donated to the Speed Art Museum, so you have the Satterwhite Gallery there, but this is the Satterwhites' burial place at Cave Hill. You have this dog here. His name is Jack. We know that his name is Jack because it says it on the collar. It says Jack. He's waiting for his master to come back to play ball with him. We have swinging Jesus there for that little girl who tragically died at an early age, and the family created this phenomenal sculpture piece for her. This is called the Brittany Bevan Memorial in Cave Hill. We call this one Smiling Jesus because Jesus has his arms out. He has a big smile on his face. Brittany Bevan is actually here in the sculpture piece. This is her holding the little child on the back. She was only about 17, 18 years old when she died in an automobile accident here in Louisville, but very beautiful monument there at Cave Hill for her. This sculpture piece here, very modern sculpture piece, is on the gravesite of George Duffy, who I think was an engineer, or he had something to do with construction, but that's his monument there. And then the one over here, the Roski, it's the flying person, the flying whatever it is. It's a bronze sculpture of a person leaping, very beautiful. It's near the Satterwhite Memorial, the Roski. By the way, if you ever go to Cave Hill and you're interested in who designed these sculpture pieces, the sculptor usually signs the piece somewhere on the sculpture piece, like on the Roski right here. The artist signed it on the base plaque there. But if you walk around these sculpture pieces, usually you can see where the artist has signed their name, if you're interested in knowing who created these. At the University of Louisville, we have perhaps maybe one of the world's most noted sculpture pieces. It's the Auguste Rodin thinker statue. There it is. And it's actually by Auguste Rodin of Paris, France, famous sculptor, who, by the way, Enid Yandel studied with Auguste Rodin in the late 1800s. This person here is actually thinking about the thinker statue there. Auguste Rodin, when he created this statue, a lot of people wanted to buy it, and a light bulb went off in his head. He said, hey, a lot of people like this statue, so he created hundreds of these statues. And we actually have one of the originals here. But I've seen it in San Francisco, I think I've seen it in Philadelphia, I've seen it in numerous American cities where they've been able to obtain the thinker statue. So this isn't the only one of its kind, there's hundreds of them out there. And one reason no one has tried to steal this, even though if you try to steal this, it does have an alarm system on it to prevent you from doing that, but regardless, that's our famous thinker statue. As you drive around Louisville, you see decorative benches, bus shelters that people can wait under while they're waiting for their bus to come by. This one, when I walked by this one, I went, whoa, what's going on here? It totally caught me by surprise. It's called Homeless Jesus, and it's in front of St. James Catholic Church on Bardstown Road. And it's a figurine that is wrapped up in a blanket. There's actually over here a plaque that explains what's going on, and you can provide a donation for the homeless if you'd like to, a monetary donation. But if you're just walking along not paying attention and you see that, it kind of grabs you real fast, like, whoa, what's that? We have some beautiful murals here in Louisville. Some painters have done some phenomenal job. I do not know who the artists are. I'm sure it looks like there's a name over here in the lower right-hand corner. And I think they usually do list who does these. But beautiful sculpture murals. This one, though, unfortunately, it's right along, this is Main Street, and Main Street's heading westbound. And you really can't, unless you're going to this parking lot right here, you don't see this mural. Fortunately, I had to go to the business that's there in that parking lot, and I turned around and said, whoa, where did this come from? Really, I was unaware of that, but it's beautiful. We have some beautiful murals here. Here are a few others. This is part of this restaurant down in the Lulu area at Market and Campbell, I think, is the cross street. The Frida Kahlo mural, which is up here. She has that very colorful headdress on. She was a Cuban artist, I believe, but it's down at the Mexican restaurant. Beautiful, I love that sculpture piece. We have murals that denote the neighborhoods. This is for the Highlands neighborhood area. This is in the Shelby Park neighborhood. In fact, if you go into the Shelby Park neighborhood, a number of their buildings have these beautiful murals on them. They've really taken hold of that and put them up everywhere. This is Edgar Allan Poe, I believe that's a raven. Fascinating. The Russell neighborhood, likewise, they are big into murals and created a lot of murals there for their really nice when you're driving through a neighborhood and you see these huge colorful murals. This is a very small decorative memorial that's in the Willow Park in Cherokee Triangle neighborhood. It's a bird bath, and it talks about this woman, Emily Yunker, and I think she was a librarian, Louisville Public School. Oh, she was a nature instructor, nature teacher. So her being a nature instructor, they created a bird bath for her. So birds are always coming to her in that manner. So pretty fascinating little sculpture piece that's just sort of set out on this little park. I was just walking along and I said, oh, what's this about? And yeah, very fascinating. This is the Pan sculpture. This is in Kennedy Park at Crescent Hill. Charlotte Price was the sculptor. And there's actually several of these around Louisville from what I understand. This one's at Kennedy Park. I think one was down on the Belvedere, I want to say. But what I've been told is there's 2 or 3 of these little Pan sculpture pieces in Louisville. This is the one I'm most familiar with in Crescent Hill neighborhood. And we've had a number of sculpture pieces that have been somewhat missing or removed, and I'll kind of highlight a few of these. I did this data sheet that kind of explains what happened to all of these sculpture pieces. Number one would be they created along West Main Street these walking cane sculptures, which talked about various industries and legacies of Louisville. As you walked along the sidewalk, they were to protect these trees. And for whatever reason, I have no idea, but the city decided to discard these walking cane sculptures and they put them in a storage lot. Hopefully one day they will come back, but I'm not sure why they would have removed them, but hopefully they'll be back. Here's another interesting one. It's the 1890 Cyclone sculpture piece. It was down at 8th and Main Street. You heard about the April 3rd, 1974 tornado. Well, we had even a similar devastating tornado in the 1890s, in March of 1890. And it destroyed most of West Main Street there, large swath of West Louisville. It was a pretty devastating tornado. So back for the centennial of that tornado in 1990, they put up this sculpture to commemorate those that were killed. I forget how many died during that tornado, but they put up a sculpture for that. Well, that has since been removed as well. Various reasons for that, but hopefully one day they'll bring this sculpture piece back also. My slide sort of is delayed a bit as well. We do have a 1974 memorial as well. And it's not so much a sculpture piece, it's more of a plaque, and that's down at the Louisville Water Company property there on Frankfort Avenue near Stilts. There's a little fountain and plaque talking about the 1974 tornado. Well, this guy does not seem to go. I'm going to hit one more time and see if that will do it. Ah, that did it, I think. Okay. This is the George Prentice statue, which used to be outside the York entrance of the library. Here you can see the back of it there. Prentice was an editor with the he was with the Journal newspaper, which combined with the Courier newspaper to form the Courier Journal newspaper. And Prentice was again an editor of those newspapers. And they put his statue outside the library. I won't get into all of the issues associated with Prentice, but they decided to take his sculpture down a few years ago. And for what it's worth, I think this was Carrara marble as well. He was deteriorating. His face is pretty much withered off. I told the city, if you just leave it up another year or two, it's just going to break apart and fall apart. But the city decided to remove it. Here they are removing it there. One of the more infamous, famous, whatever you want to call it, removals of recent was the Castleman statue. I've been involved for the last few years trying to get the Castleman reinstalled. Yes, Castleman did something bad when he was a teenager. He joined the Confederate Army. But as an adult, he did a lot of good things. He was also in the U.S. Army. He was a general in the United States Army. He was not a general in the Confederacy. Some people think he was, but he wasn't. He was only a major. And he was captured and was sentenced to death. And Abraham Lincoln spared his life. He was supposed to get hung up in Indianapolis, but he was spared. Came back to Louisville and helped create the Olmsted Park system. Castleman did a lot of great things for the African American community. In fact, after his death, 19 prominent African Americans wrote a letter, editorial to the Courier Journal, praising Castleman and his actions on behalf of the African American community. They said if Castleman had still been alive in 1924, the parks would never have been segregated, which they were in 1924, which was 8 years after Castleman no longer was involved with the parks. Castleman promised the African American community he would not segregate the parks, which he never did. However, the activist community said he did do that. Why? I don't know. That's another whole story. But anyways, he did a lot of good things in his adult life. He was a patron of Enid Yando, of women's right to vote, various good things. Again, as an adult, he made the right decisions. As a teenager, he did not. So hopefully one day, enlightened leadership here in the community will recognize the good things that he did and put his statue back along with several other. We're advocating that a civil rights memorial be put up as well associated with this so that those 19 brave African American leaders in the early 1900s during the horrible Jim Crow era are honored as well. We need some memorials to those folks as well. Anyways, there is the Castleman being removed. It's currently stored in a city yard off of Lexington Road. Of course, the clock is in storage as well, as I mentioned earlier. I doubt if it'll ever come back, but I think the figurines need to be taken out of storage and installed in a museum. Our own namesake, the namesake of Louisville, Kentucky, is in a warehouse right now. This is the Louis XVI sculpture, which used to be down at 6th and Jefferson. And it is made of marble, but it's made of a very durable marble that does not weather outside, so it can be outside. In fact, before it was removed, you go down there and you can see it was very well detailed, all the fleur-de-lis, beautiful sculpture piece. It was created in almost about, what, 200 years ago, 1829. I hope it's back by 2029. I hope they bring it back. Here it is being removed during the activist protest around 2020. They defaced and graffitied and did other horrible things to the statue. And so the city decided to put it into storage. I actually did this article right here talking about the statue. Hopefully it'll bring it back again. It's our namesake. And it has a direct connection to King Louis XVI. His daughter commissioned that statue. So it's not like someone just made a statue like a statue of David down on West Main Street. This sculpture was created by King Louis XVI's daughter. So it's a direct connection to our namesake. We need to bring it back. Sorry for a little editorializing there on that. Southern Indiana. They have some sculpture pieces there at the big Forest Station Park. Wayne Stopino, an architect, created these pylons, these colorful pylons that are down there, which also talk about the 1937 flood. The color of the pylon changes as you go up. It shows the height of the flood waters in 1937. They have a sculpture of Thomas Jefferson as well. They're named for Jeffersonville is named for Thomas Jefferson. We have a Lewis and Clark statue as well. Even though St. Louis created the arch, and they claimed Lewis and Clark, the expedition there, actually Lewis and Clark met here over in Clarksville, went on the expedition in 1803, and came back to Louisville in 1806. So we should claim them even more so than St. Louis, but St. Louis got the arch built and we did it. But we do have this nice sculpture of them meeting there in southern Indiana. And there we go. Thank y'all for attending. Hopefully you enjoyed all of that. I kind of rambled a little bit. Let's check the time watch here. But any questions on any of that? Yes?
I understand from something I read